Where did you first hear about the Bus Stop Bandits?
Where did I first learn about the Bus Stop Bandits? One night I was biking home from my friend's house, and it was quite cold on this night. I had my AirPods in, my gloves were on, and as I was biking home I asked Siri if she could play The Bus Stop, which is a song from Grand Theft Auto 4. It's some disco song, but I didn't know what it was called, I didn't know who it was by, so I figured if I just tell her to play The Bus Stop, then she would play The Bus Stop. So I asked her to play it, and it's immediately I just start hearing just really bad music. I don't even think I could consider it music. It sounded like someone just had like a preset beat just kind of playing in the background, and they just were messing with different buttons and keys. It was weird. At this point I have to stop pedaling and I have to get off my bike, take my gloves off, because I'm thinking, how is it that I ask Siri to play The Bus Stop and she plays what sounds like music like a little kindergartner made? I pull my phone out and I see that it's a full-on album. Thinking, how can someone make an album of something that sounds so garbage? You know what the phrase is? You know the phrase is, curiosity killed the cat. That night I got killed. The first song on the album is titled Contemplation. It's actually an intro, less than a song. That was my first impression on Bus Stop Bandits, was that opening intro. When I first heard Contemplation, it was so bad, but looking back at it now, after feeling emotions, after sitting through that whole album, I see that intro differently now. So you remember how I was biking when I found out about this? Once I stopped pedaling to pull out my phone, I was too invested in hearing what this intro was to even try and finding out what the bus stop was even called from GTA 4. That thought was erased from my head. I was just wondering, how can they make an album out of all of just this? So I skipped the intro and I played the song after that, but this one sounded nothing like the first one at all. This time it had a guy rapping over it, and the instrumental was actually on beat.
Ideas, you're a fine writer. Leave it to the earth to find out your time later. I'm too sedated doing research.
Upon hearing it, I was quite thrown off. I honestly thought I was listening to a different project. This song sounded nothing like what I had just heard previously, which was Contemplation. The guy's flow was weird, his mic sounded bad, and the way he pronounces some words sometimes is a little funny too. Not so much pronounces words, but more so the way he constructs his words. Like literally the first opening line, ideas.
You're a fine writer.
For a very long time, I didn't even consider this song to be part of the album. I just kind of always left it in the shadows. I didn't touch it. But really recently, I decided to listen to the album again the whole way through, and I didn't want to skip 0097. And I feel like there was one part in the song that actually made me not dislike it as much as I once did. Like a minute and 50 seconds in, you hear him say something about the drips and drafts and the everlasting gas.
Some things you only see from blimps, and other flying things like drifts and drafts and the blink of everlasting gas. In the sky lost in the past.
I heard that and I thought that he worded it so strangely that it actually made me start liking the song. I don't know, sometimes when he's singing it kind of comes off as like some little emo teenage boy at sometimes, especially his signing off words, which is that he's
the world, I'm compassionate and in love.
Just not rhyming at all, but it's cool though, because it's the Bus Stop Bandits. Does it really have to be amazing? The thing is that I like this song now. I used to, again, not even consider it a part of the album. This is also the first song you hear someone say Bus Stop Bandits in.
For income, Bus Stop Bandits, we gon' steal your hearts in limbo. Give it to
the words Bus Stop Bandits does come again, but at a way later time. We'll get to that later. I still don't even really know what he's talking about or rapping about, what's the deeper meaning behind it, but I know that I'll likely know the answer one day. The more I listen, the more the words will make sense to me. To remind you though, when I first heard this, I only listened to the first several seconds and realized that this is not anything like what I had heard previously, so I skipped it. And when I skip it, you're now into the third track in the album titled Spare Change. skipping 007 and hearing this, I knew I was back in the realm that I was looking for. In this, you do actually get that Bus Stop Bandits feeling. The song is titled Spare Change, and you can actually hear the guy jingling some most likely spare R's change in his hand as an instrument. Toward the end, too, there's like this scary clown horn that plays, that also plays in a later song in the album that I will get to. That scary clown horn, whatever the hell you want to call it, really leaves a scary feeling in the heart. Though this song is not a favorite of mine, it kind of would feel wrong to not have this song in the album. It just, the whole thing wouldn't play out right altogether. Song the fourth, Waypoints. The first 4 seconds of this song was really a dark sounding track. It sounded kind of gangster in a way, you know? I say 4 seconds though because that's all I listened to on my first listen. I listened to the first 4 seconds and realized that the drums were really off, and I thought it was gonna be like this the whole way through, so I skipped to like the halfway point. But then listening to the song from the halfway point, I could only just think to myself, how did we even get to this point in the song? So I restarted it from the beginning and gave it a true listen. Replaying the song over, I could hear the drums being offbeat, but the more I listened, there's just one snare that hits and everything makes sense. I remember that was a pretty crazy feeling to feel. This song is so good. To this day, I'm still thankful I didn't continue listening to it from that halfway point, because it probably would have just tainted my view on the song. It's got such a dark and like wacky feel in a way, but it's like not one of those like wacky like a birthday clown. It's like wacky and like serial killer kind of wacky. You don't want that kind of wacky. There's a part in the song that really does freak me out, and it kind of sounds like clickers from the game The Last of Us. It just sounds like cupping. It just sounds like repeated cups. It really does feel a little sinister. And at the time of listening to this too, I had my gloves on. It was really cold. I didn't have time to pull out my phone and see really what I was listening to. So when I was listening to this, all the songs kind of just sounded like they were blending together. Now knowing where the song split though, I know that the upcoming song right after Waypoints is titled All the Suckers. On my bike ride home, I didn't even know he was saying all the suckers. I genuinely was hearing I was sucking. I thought this guy was sucking it all. This is where those scary clown horns come into play, by the way. It's on this song. In this song, it doesn't just get played once, it gets played a bunch of times, but that's because it keeps getting pitched up and pitched down. It's just, oh my god. It's even scarier hearing it like this than it was the first time. You really do get an uneasy feeling while experiencing this album. It's like an uneasy feeling that something bad is gonna happen, but you really don't know how. You don't know who's gonna make a wrong move, and that's gonna be when the bad starts happening. I don't know, there's like a million different ways to describe the bad feeling this album can give you. And when All the Suckers was done playing, it switched songs. This one was quite easy to tell that it was going from one song to the other, just because they sound so different from each other. This song was titled The Ritual. Usually I'd say that Waypoints was the one that actually got me intrigued into the album, but The Ritual hit a different spot that really hit the intrigue button. Waypoints was just teasing the intrigue button. The Ritual pressed it. The sound you hear immediately is so good. It's so... It almost evokes something in you. I almost wish that they played the sound for the whole song, but unfortunately about halfway through, they only stick to, you know, some drums and whatnot. And then every now and then they'll like sprinkle in like a... For a little bit, I would find myself just like skipping it after the halfway point because that sound is like no more. But Dude, grow up. The Ritual is too good to just skip like that. It's a very feel-good song, and it feels good song. The 7th song on the album is titled Synapse Monitor. I did some research on this a little bit afterwards and found out that I was pronouncing it wrong. I was pronouncing it synapse. So these people had me come back in and do a whole other interview where I pretty much just said what I said the first time, but instead of saying synapse, I said synapse. Then the editor later on found out that it actually is pronounced synapse and it's only pronounced synapse if you're from the UK. I still don't even really know what it means. All I know is that it's the name of the song and it involves a monitor. I think it's got something to do with the brain, you know, two neurons meeting with each other, kind of. This song also does have a little bit of an uneasy feel to it. It almost sounds like something you would hear in a Salad Fingers video from way back when.
Hello.
And you can hear in the background that there's like this glitching noise that gets pitched up 4 times before looping again. It's almost like these guys are just kind of using whatever sounds they can get their hands on, and that is why it's so good. The 8th song in the album immediately puts you in a state. I mean, it's just such kick-backed music. So offbeat, but they did it in such a way where my brain today can now play the song offbeat in the right order. I don't even know how my brain did it, but it can. So many different sounds in this one that just play around your head, and you have the guy who says blow it up, blow it up. What are they blowing up? I don't know. I first heard the song and thought that they were saying throw it up. So I thought they were throwing up some signs or they were throwing up some graffiti, and having the idea that they're, you know, possibly throwing up some graffiti pieces also brought me back to where I grew up. Where I grew up, graffiti was very prominent and it just felt like this. A lot of these songs in this album just make me feel like I'm in areas that I kind of wish I could be in, despite what the areas may be. These songs kind of remind me of, it's gonna be a little weird to say this, but if you know the show The Nut Shack, it kind of had that art style, just like a gritty, kind of ghetto feel to it. And The Nut Shack isn't the only reference I can give. There are many other games or locations that I feel when listening to this song, or just songs throughout the album. I feel this same feeling in Saints Row 3. Saints Row 3 has some very gritty, almost worn down areas to it. And bringing it back to the graffiti and where I grew up, the video game Getting Up also shares this worn down kind of New York-y feel, but it's not New York, it's New Radius.
Blow it up, blow it up.
New Radius, Nut Shack, and Saints Row 3, for some reason, just all have that common grit to it that I can feel throughout this album. Throughout this song, Blow It Up, it just puts you in a state that, again, I don't even know how to describe. Blow It Up loops twice, so that means that to those 2 loops, there's one ending. The ending to each loop, the first one's different than the last, because the last one, the ending plays out, but then the song ends. For the first loop though, when the end comes to it, you start hearing almost like these angelic, kind of harmonical harmonics. It's like throughout this musical piece, there actually is a little bit of peace in there. And you know, you get to hear that peace, you know, it feels like things are heavenly, you know, almost kind of getting to that point. But then the song abruptly just puts you right back into the track. That transition, man, there's something about that transition that I feel every time. Track number 9 is Bubble Jazz. I remember on my first listen of Bubble Jazz, Since all the drums essentially are just this guy's voice, he's doing little nicks and knacks. It's as if on my first listen, you could kind of hear certain nicks and knacks get more pronounced throughout the song went, almost as if the guy producing all the sounds is like trying to find a certain nick. You know, he's trying to find that certain one, he's trying to pronounce it so he can really accentuate it. On my second listen, I didn't really get this feeling, and I don't really get it to this day, but I figured it'd be worth telling you guys since this is a real experience I had with the album. I do find myself thinking about this song in my head. It's got a little, like, catchy little lead in the back of it. It's quite nice. It's a nice song. This song also kind of brings out that creative feel that they all had for this album. It almost feels like they all were set to like limited things, so they made the best out of what they could. Track number 10, Scrambled Legs. It opens up with another kind of eerie sound to it. Once you let it play though for a good 10 seconds, it immediately puts you into just a whole different sound that sounded like the intro. The way I've described this song to people is almost like, I feel like you would hear it in the back of like a Call of Duty Black Ops funny moments. It was a weird song. To have a song like that appear in this album that didn't, I mean, it stood apart, you know, because this one sounded a little more goofy than the rest. The ending of the song, too, also has weird elements to it. I could almost see it be, unfortunately, I have to say this, but almost a TikTok trend. If you guys hear the end of it, I hope you know exactly what I mean. Track number 11, Dis-Ease. This song, I find, was the most lost potential in the whole album. The intro opens up, and it's not even really music, but more of ambiance. The thing about this album is that you hear a lot of reoccurring noises that you heard through several tracks. That same sound you just heard is also the sound that plays at the beginning of Blow It Up. That's the sound. And these reoccurring sounds, they just all feel so familiar, and that's just what elevates the flavor of this album by so much. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I speak English, so I know what you're saying.
Well, yeah, no need to be a dick about it, but yeah. The intro to this song, too, it almost just feels like you're a passenger in, like, this tunnel. Like, you know what those turtles swimming in the ocean? It's in Finding Nemo. Yes, that one. It feels like you're almost in that, but instead of being engulfed by water, you're, like, engulfed by, like, space and time, and the album, just the whole album of it just wraps around.
Are you on Coke?
Coke? Why are you mentioning Coke?
Do you have Coke?
Do I have Coke?
You have Coke on you.
Do I have Coke on me?
Yes, you have Coke on you.
Do I have Coke on me?
You're high on Coke.
We have this on camera, right? People, they're asking me if I have Coke on me. They suspect that I have Coke. I don't have any Coke, people. We know with the light, the cameras are going. So the intro plays through, and instead of going from what you heard, you know, that atmospheric, kind of awesome sounding EAC, water tunnel, whatever the hell I'm going on about, the mood and feel completely switches, and now it's like some really bad sounding, like, it almost sounds like a terrorist's phone going off. It's really digitally little, very short in, you hear the only line that you'll be hearing for the rest of the song, and that is, to have a disease is an ability, don't come anywhere near my vicinity.
To have a disease is an ability, don't come anywhere near my vicinity.
It also took me a long while to find out that dis-ease isn't referring to this ease that he's doing. No, it's not an ease. I don't know how I didn't see it any sooner, but he's saying disease. He's saying it throughout the whole song. To have a disease is an ability, don't come anywhere near my vicinity. And then by the end of the song, you kind of have like some guy kind of just like whispering what into the microphone. He's going, what? And by the time the guy is whispering what, there's already so many things going on. I mean, there's probably the same guy still going off in the background. He's using his voice, but he's not saying anything. He's just kind of making sounds. And on top of this guy just making sounds and the what, there's also this really harsh sounding synth going on too. Not a great track. I'm sorry, Bandits, I really am sorry. But at the same time, I claim that some of these songs are really trash, but at the end of the day, they still play in my head. Involuntary or not, I will still have them play inside my head willingly once it's already started playing. And it goes on for a while. I'm not too sure either why I'm hyper-analyzing this song specifically, because if I were to do that to every single song, this video would be over an hour long. Assuming the editor is not okay with that, because if he is, I will gladly keep going.
He's not.
He's not okay with that?
Not getting paid enough.
He's not getting paid enough.
Mm-mm.
I feel bad for your editor. Nah, I'm sure he loves his job. Though, I have to say, this song does include an element that also plays in Blow It Up. The sample I'm talking about is like this kind of faint guitar in the back. It's almost like, it borderline sounds like reversed guitar. And you hear this a little bit into Disease. And that same little guitar sample you also hear near the end of Blow It Up. If I had the sound file to just that little reverse sounding guitar, I would play that on repeat. The song that follows Dis-Ease is Warranted. This song out of the whole album is I find the only one that sounds the most radio friendly. Again, this one, very on beat. There isn't certain sounds that sound a little too pronounced. I mean, it's a very organized track. Even though it's still a very organized track, there's still parts in it that I personally love, just like all the other songs. There's always something about a certain song that just catches your attention. In this case, there are 8 notes. There's like these little piano, little keys that play, 8 of them total. The first 4, down, and then the last 4, it's like it used up all its energy, all its batteries, so it just really hits you with a really dead sounding key. And then of course, in a little bit into the song, you get kind of like this break. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The 13th song in the album, titled Dune Music. I think this song also is the only one in the whole album that kind of keeps the same feel the whole time. With the title Dune Music too, they kind of got it pretty good. When I listen to it, it just sounds like I'm in a desert, on a camel maybe. You can hear a guy vocalizing over it as well, the whole track. Not a bad song if you need it in a certain scenario, but definitely not a favorite one on the album. I haven't even added that one to my likes. That's a lie, I've added every single one of them to my likes. The 14th track on this album is an interlude, and it's titled Riders Gather. This is a scary song. My very first time listening to it, I was hoping that it would turn into, something musically. The more I listened, the less that feeling stayed with me. It pretty much sounds like if you took some wind chimes and you just jangled them up and down, and you add like mega delay on there, so it's always happening. Literally like the 48, 49 second mark, My first time listening, I really just wanted to skip it because it sounded too harsh, it sounded too scary. I just didn't want to finish it. But I sat there and I made myself listen to it. It's really harsh sounding, especially like the 51, 52, 53 second mark. That's like the peak of all the harsh coming together. And then at the end of it, there's like a little like melody going on and it sounds really damn awesome. I think had they turned that into a song, there's like a little very faint down there. I don't know why that was added to the end of it either. I don't know a lot of the reasons that a lot of the things were put in this album. By the time I finished Writer's Gather, I had already gotten home from biking from my friend's house. I put the album aside for the night, not really thinking that there was going to be many left after this, and I called it a night on that. I listened to a good handful of songs on my bike home that night. And I remember thinking on that bike ride home, these songs are good, but I don't see myself listening to them in my free time. In this case, the specific scenario I had in mind was I don't see myself listening to this while I build away in Minecraft. The literal next night, I did exactly what I thought I wouldn't do. This time I was able to listen to the whole album rather than the first half, it seems like. I listened to Writer's Gather again once more, and again it gave me the same uneasy feeling. I really wanted to skip the song, but I sat myself through it and I did not skip it. However, the song that follows, Tungsten Glow, the song opens up with a sound that sounds like it could come straight out of like Half-Life 2. And the sound cuts off and they just throw you the most crisp sounding music ever, man. You know when you hear a song and you kind of know to yourself that this probably won't be the last time you listen to it. This wasn't that. This, I knew I was going to be listening to this and I knew I was going to be looping it. I mean, frick man, call me Marty McFly, but it's almost like this is the sound I was looking for. A guy like me is always on the lookout for new music, so the fact that Siri suggested this by accident is almost like it was done on purpose. Even to this day, this minute, whenever I re-listen to the album, I always find something new to hear in every track. When will I ever hear all the little nicks and knacks that these people have put into these musical pieces? I don't know, maybe never. Maybe I'll get up to 99%, but there's just that one sound that I will never hear. Only the chef knows his own sauce, and those chefs are the Bandits. Oh my god, the transition from drums and bass to then right back into the melody, or whatever the hell you want to call it, man, is so good. Transition and a good feel to that song. The producers, the people on this, I mean, they did amazing. They really are initiative thinkers. Like, I can picture this guy making this song and he hears the transitions, but it's just something's not right, you know, something's off. So what does he do? He grabs his mic, like he's a damn ghost, and the song is perfect. The song's like a 10 out of 10 now, it literally is. And those little chimes, they're hard to describe, but it's like you're waving like a metal pole around. Later on in the song, there's like 2 notes to it, and they sound so good when you put them together. Because you hear the first pole waving, and it sounds a little bit annoying, it doesn't sound too great. I mean, I'm saying this from when I first heard it, I don't still agree with what I thought then. You hear that sound come in and you feel like it's a little bit annoying, but then later on in the song, you hear that same sound, but it's pitched down a little bit. And then they play the normal pitched one. I'm speechless, man. God, it's good. These tunes are so damn good. I even got my homeboys latched onto the Bandits. I mean, check this footage of my brodom Caleb in his crane listening to the Bandits. follows Tungsten Glow is titled Before the Hospital. My first time listening to this, I will not lie, I believe I did skip it. I skipped it because it made a very annoying sound at the beginning, and I thought it would play throughout the whole song, and it does. But as it stands today, that sound that I heard doesn't even come off as an annoying sound. If anything now, it kind of just comes off as like you're inside a police car and you're going somewhere, you're going to a destination. Perhaps, maybe even this is the car ride before the hospital. You know, the police are taking you, they're bringing you to the hospital, you know, the sirens are going, wah, 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 wah. And the ending of the song too, it's almost like they spit in your face, but like in the best way possible. The song is coming to like a closing end, and instead of getting a true ending, it's like they tricked us. You hear the sound start glitching out, and then the bass turns into just little short intervals of you can hear that it's not artificial, someone really played those with their fingers. And that's a very common thing in this whole album, is that there's a lot of real sounds, and what I like to think are maybe instrumental pads that you can press, or I don't know, I really wonder how they did the whole album, man. I'm also pretty positive that the bass that they use for Before the Hospital is also the same lead sound that they use for the very last song in the album, titled, I won't say it yet because we're not there yet, but I'm pretty positive that they really did only have like a limited amount of sounds, or whatever you want to call it, and they made do with what they had, and they made do right. The song after Before the Hospital is titled All Passengers.
All passengers.
Upon my first hearing of this song, I did also skip it. I'm sorry. I don't really blame myself though. When you kind of just have the base of the song in mind, you can tell that it's a very boring song, if you will. There's still cool elements about it, like how they actually took real vocals from like real buses and bus stations, and you know, your usual overcom type shite. I think that's what they're called. An overcom? Nope. Yeah, overcom. This is also the second song in the album where you hear the words Bus Stop Bandits. They chopped up the wording so that it sounds like Bus Stop Bandits. And when you actually get a nice full listen to the song, you kind of hear it from more of like not a creepy standpoint, but like an eerie kind of standpoint. Instead of just hearing boring, you know, there's like those shakers in the back. I don't even know if they're shakers, but it sounds like it. And then there's like that easing of that sound. It's a little hard to describe, but not a favorite song. Still cool though. The song that follows is titled Last Bus Home. The first time I heard it, it didn't hit as hard as it did the second time. The second time I was definitely much more in the groove and more in tune with the album. Like on my first listen, the Bus Stop Bandits weren't a whole lot to me. I mean, I thought it was just kind of all this funky music that this one guy put into this album, and there was barely any views on it. It was unheard of. But on my second listen of Last Bus Home, I remember I was biking somewhere in the snow, and now whenever I think of the song, that's kind of always the scenario I imagine. It's kind of like you're going somewhere, you're trying to reach a destination, you know, there's snow, it's taken a while, that kind of thing. You also kind of get the same feel as you do in Riders Gather with the wind chimes, you know, but this time instead of having the chimes be controlled by wind, it's just controlled by guys instead. But instead of having that crazy delay like on Riders Gather, instead it's just like a really big reverb. You can like literally hear the reverb activating at the beginning of the song. It's pretty cool. It makes it feel more live action, and the bass they got on the song too is very good. I also like how at the end you can kind of hear him like, it's almost like he accidentally like scrolled through the presets, but since it's all one go, he kind of just has to go with it, and he ended up flicking through a couple more, and it ended up fitting in the song quite good. It's literally as if he, I mean, hell, I can pull out my phone right now. Oh, there's my phone right here. It's literally as if he just went, oh, whoops. following song, Haunted Bus Seat. This one is also up there with the Dune music and All Passengers. They're kind of all on the same level in terms of complexity, you know? Which is not a whole lot, but the other songs make up for the ones that aren't so complex. This song too is, I find, like the most rap friendly, if you will. I mean, this is it pretty much just sounds exactly like an instrumental to some dude just rapping, going off on a beat, you know? Nothing too crazy happens in the song. Nothing crazy happens in the song at all, to be honest. You get that kind of haunted house feeling, but it's like looped. Drums are on time, they're not a millisecond off, not a millisecond late. I think this song is definitely ranked low on my list, but just because it's low on my list does not mean it's a bad song. And finally, the 20th track on the album, the very last song, titled Busted. Now honestly, had they taken out the laughing, I would listen to this song so much more. My first like 10, 12 listens, I didn't like it that much just because of the laughing. For some reason though, ever since I had a little bit of a falling off with my girlfriend, I started liking the song. I don't know what's connected in here to have that switch go on, but it happened. I guess it's just that catchy arse bass line. And the laughing also comes off now as like you've been busted by police, the police, or whoever caught you is laughing at you, you know? So it's like the laughing I can mute out just a little bit. And you do get to hear the word busted a couple times throughout the song too. Also like other weird kind of vocal chops. Kind of have this guy that sounds like he's saying Geronimo, Geronimo. This song used to be very low on my list. It's definitely ranked up a couple. All that being said, the night that I found out about the Bus Stop Bandits was through Apple Music because Siri was the one who played it. But when I got home, I wanted to see, you know, what this demographic was, who's listening to this. I go on YouTube, I look it up, and no joke, not one of the songs on the album had more than 21 views. The channel had like 3 subscribers, which was insane to me. There were no comments, no likes. It's like I was one of the only people to interact with this. And I can only imagine that all the views that are surpassed that now are majorly from me. Maybe not, I don't listen to them much on YouTube, but the weirdest part about this too is that a couple days ago, while your editor was editing this video, I don't really know how that works, it's a bit of a paradox in itself, but as your guys' editor was editing this video, my brother walked in and asked me, I mean the editor, what it was I was working on, I mean what he was working on. And the editor's explaining, you know, like what this interview is about and what I'm explaining to the audience. And my brother goes, wait a second, the Bus Stop Bandits, I know them. He was sitting in his chair and he was in disbelief. How is it that I find out about this YouTube channel with 2 subscribers and I made it 3 could also be known by my brother? I was appalled. I mean, the editor was appalled. Apparently my brother had found out about them through YouTube because he would listen to music on YouTube and the Bus Stop Bandits randomly played for him. He too noticed that there's a lack of views, barely any subscribers, no comments. And I do some YouTube as well, and I have used a lot of Bus Stop Bandits music in my videos, so I don't know if, since my brother's in tune with my channel, that maybe, you know, the virus spread to him and now the Bus Stop Bandits is latching onto others. I have no clue how any of this works, I really don't, and I really want to say that I found out about them first before he did, but it's almost not even about competition anymore. It's kind of just crazy to think that the both of us found out about them on our own. One of the things about this album when I first heard it was how the production kind of sounded like it came from a guy who is like, you know, he's a cool guy, could be cool like me, could be cool like you, but the thing about this guy is that he'll like casually do meth. You know, so he'll play a little Call of Duty, you know, smoke a little meth, make a little music. That's how busted, no pun intended, busted up and discombobulated this whole album sounded. Like it was made by this broken meth soul who makes music and it's actually good. The music felt so disconnected, yet was able to connect with me. I also wanted to find out who these names were. Surely they weren't actually meth heads, right? But a little bit of Instagramming won't hurt. Who is Infinityface? Who is Sisquatch? Whatever the hell. Who is Leo Johns? I believe the guy I ended up looking up was Jeremy Zero. The way this guy carries himself was not at all what I had in mind. You know how I was like expecting kind of like a methy looking guy, you know, kind of busted up, no pun intended. This man looked like the most like stuck up, but like not in a mean way, like he's like really rude to pricks. Like stuck up, like he's like a good dad, he's a family man. I mean, the video I saw, what I was seeing from him, he had like a dress shirt, a tie. Not at all what I was expecting. I don't know if I've said this in the interview too, but apparently Infinityface is a woman, something else that you wouldn't expect from this at all. It really just begs the question, who are these people? How did they come up with this? What is the idea for this album, En Route? I don't know if I ever mentioned that either. That's what the album's called, En Route. Or En Route if you're English. That's the other thing too. They have a French title, but these guys are from Detroit, I'm pretty sure. There's just so many questions that I hope one day will get answered. And to think that all this praise, all this love, all this effort into making this interview all leads back to that terrible, no good contemplation intro. Whenever I sit through the album, I don't skip it. You have to listen to it to understand the rest of the album. And towards the end of Contemplation too, there's kind of like this little yell. I don't even want to call it a yell, but a little, it's like a little you know, That sound gets spammed a couple times at the end. And if you remember Synapse Monitor, you know how I compared it to Salad Fingers, you know, because it kind of has like an eerie sound to the whole song. That gets played throughout the entirety of Synapse Monitor. So when you listen back to Contemplation, you now also get this uneasy feel from Contemplation. It's like watching a happy scene in a scary movie, because nothing happy happens in a scary movie. Happy. There's like that little hint of uneasy that just hits you when you hit the end of Contemplation.
If there was one thing you could have them do differently, what would it be?
One thing I would have them do different? Frick, that's a tough question. You know, my answer isn't even music related. I think that if I were to have them change anything about the album, it would be the font on the album. The actual text of it feels way too playful for the tone of the album. But at the same time, the way the songs on the album feel like they have limited instruments, it's like they had limited utilities to make the album. So I don't even think I would change it in the end. To also think that I'm like a year late on the album, I was thinking back to the time when they released it. The timeline of the releasing kind of matches with the timeline of my life. Like, had Marshall a year ago heard the Bus Stop Bandits, he'd probably react the same as today. If anything, he'd have a little bit more boasting privileges because there would be practically no views, no subscribers on it or anything. I really hope this isn't the last project that the Bus Stop Bandits do, because frankly they carry a noise that I haven't really heard anywhere else, and that noise that they carry feels like something I've been looking for a very long time. I also wish that people also had the same compassion as I do for the album, but since they're not really finding out about it on their own and instead they're hearing it through a geek like me, it doesn't really hit as hard for them. To them it's like, alright, shut off that clown music, like, why are you showing me this? Why are you showing me this? And almost breaking down in tears for how beautiful it is. That's why I decided to do this interview, so that hopefully I could really get the word out and people could experience them on their own. There is one thing that scares me a little bit about the legitimacy of all this album, and it's the remixes that they have in there. You'll notice that they have Infinityface remix or Leo Johns remix. what is it a remix to? Because I don't want to have all this love for these songs and feel the originality in them just to find out that it was actually previously made, you know? But I feel it in my heart that these remixes have got to be like remixes of their own tunes or something. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll get an answer, maybe I won't. But remix or not, you can't deny that the music is good.
Would you be able to pick a favorite song out of the whole album?
You know what? That's a good question because I already have my answer locked in. My #1 favorite song on the whole album is Blow It Up. I know, that's a crazy answer, but it's true. I think my second favorite would probably be Tungsten Glow, since I feel like I've listened to it more than Blow It Up. But just because I've listened to it more doesn't mean that it's my favorite. Though Tungsten Glow, I mean, they're like neck and neck. You really kind of get best of both worlds too, because Blow It Up is all like disjointed, discombobulated, and Tungsten Glow is like the opposite of that. You know, it's on time, good rhythm. They're fighting for first, but Blow It Up knows he's gonna win.
If you have any last words to say in this interview, tell them now.
Any last words? Frick. I think I want to speak to the Bandits individually right now. If you guys actually sat through this entire video just to listen about this album that you guys made, I can't thank you anymore. I mean, it would kind of be like a dream come true to have the Bandits notice me. I hope you guys know that your music was really impactful towards me, and I've only known this album for we're probably coming up on 3 months. Wow. What? In those 3 months, a lot has happened, and throughout those 3 months, there's only one thing that has actually stuck around the whole time, that being this album. To all the Bandits out there, I hope you guys can recruit me as a Bandit too. I will steal with you guys. I will go frick shite up. I want to be one of the Bandits. To everybody else still here, I want to thank you for watching this. I can't believe you actually sat through an almost hour-long video. Man, I'm sure your editor wants to hang himself right now, but maybe if the editor loves making videos enough, he's not even gonna mind having an almost hour-long video to edit. To all the viewers out there, you guys are awesome. To all the Bandits out there, you guys rock, I swear to God. I can't believe this interview is actually coming to an end. I honestly thought that I was gonna be sitting in this chair forever. Thank you to everyone though, and please give the Bus Stop Bandits a fair share listen. Now go off, experience it for your own. Come on, you have to. We're done here? Am I getting paid?
You're not getting a dime.
No!